the thing with the Broncos, they can be anything. You know, Payne Haas, that try scored on the weekend, like no other front row, I don't think, can do that.
They hate the Roosters, and out of the dreadful season they've had, they would take a lot from going, we've just cocked up your finals.
I actually thought the difference in the game was a kicking game. I thought Moses' long kicking game kept the Warriors just out of it.
DSPN, the Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
Big League Tuesday, NRL. Here we go. Final round of the round robin, and then into the finals we go. Our man Tony Kemp, former Warriors coach, played his professional league both hemispheres, 25 times capped for the Kiwis, joins us again. Tone.
Awesome, isn't it? Yeah. We said it would come down to the last week. So
well, I think we're over all the hurdles. We've got that 10-metre sprint to the line now and then into the finals.
Yeah, as long as no one trips up.
Well, this is it.
Or kicks the ball to the Fox on the last and goes 100 metres to score.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, look, it was there for the taking. I hear what Andrew Webster's saying about the game. You know, like we just let them into the game at the wrong time, and we're battling to get back. And then the hand of God went on our side when Lecker went up and got his fingers. I think was it Dimitri Wani that went up?
Yeah, I've looked at that probably half a dozen times, and I can't see a knock on in there. But maybe I'm looking at it with one eye covered in a Warriors patch on that eye.
Well, you have got one of those, and I think the worst thing about that, like I thought the same thing when I was watching it. Like, how could you call that? But then when they came out and after the game said, "Yeah, it did touch my hand." Look, it's dead. It's dead, dead in the water because the person that actually touched the ball said that it touched his hand. And the thing about, but I thought I was facing my try line, it doesn't matter when you're moving forward in rugby league. You touch the ball, you're moving forward, you're not going backwards, and that's the knock on. So the part that really upset me was going upstairs after it was a try. You know, so that little ounce of luck that we needed where the guy upstairs in the bunker said, "Oh no, that's a try." He pushed the button and said, "I don't know," you know, and that was the difference.
Look, I think though that, you know, this is what I love about Andrew Webster, that he's just so cold when he comes to assessing things, and you know, the team shouldn't be in a position where it's chasing the game like that and desperate to try and score a last minute try. I mean, that game they should have been in control of, and so you know, you got to go back and you can micro every single decision that's made and say this should have happened, that should have happened. We shouldn't have been in a position where we're chasing a game with 5 minutes to go trying to win a game at home against a team that's way below us in the table. That's the way I look at it. Yeah,
look, and like I said to you last week, the difference here was that Mitchell Moses is playing to retain the 7 Kangaroo jersey.
You did say that.
You know what I mean? So when I was watching the game right from the beginning, the collision was really awesome. Both sides, you know, both forward packs had lined up. They were getting to their kick. It was just a fair dinkum game of footy, and it was about like who was going to step up. And Moses, you know, the ball from Polo to the fullback, you know, and the fullback going around chance and scoring that try, just the pace of him. You know, Moses hitting a few passes and coming off. I actually thought the difference in the game was a kicking game. I thought Moses' long kicking game kept the Warriors just out of it. You know, when he was hitting that ball, and we see that in Origin from him all the time, when he hits that ball and you actually got to take it down 10 metres off your line, no matter if he's kicking it at 30 metres from his try line, and they're getting down there on their kick chase.
It's a longer kicking game, isn't it? It's adding another 20 or 30,
yeah, it kept them in the game at a time when the Warriors were coming home with a bit of wind behind their sails. So, look, I said last week, it's scary when you've got Mitchell Moses, you know, playing for that jersey, and this week's no difference when you go to Manly. Actually, 3 big games this weekend.
Massive games, and we'll go through all of those. So I want to go points table at the moment and just, you know, establish what we already know. Canberra Raiders minor premierships.
Well done.
Congratulations to them. 19 wins out of 23 games. It's been an outstanding season right from the get-go. Just walloping the Warriors in Vegas. This is a team that nobody really thought would be minor prems at the start. I defy anyone to say that they were going to be minor prems at the start.
They picked them for the wooden spoon. You know, Joseph Tarpon, his first year as skipper. Congratulations, like, mate, coming from Wellington, you know, doing what he's done with that Canberra side. You got to remember, coming from Newcastle, he was in all sorts before he went down to Canberra. Taking him to a minor premiership, they're a chance.
And what I love about Ricky Stuart, and I've interviewed this guy a couple of times, I really like him as a person. When you sit down with him, he's got a league brain on, and he just loves the sport. But I love him being on the sideline, just exhorting the troops, and he's one of those kind of coaches. I can't imagine him sitting in the box. He's actually there, and you can tell the affection he has with those players and the relationship that he has with those players. And he's also not a guy that's jumping in front of the camera after they win or anything like that. He's a real league man, isn't he? That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, he is through and through. He does some wonderful things for us back here in New Zealand too. He comes out in his own steam, and I know of a couple of instances where he's helped clubs in New Zealand raise money for some really good causes, and it's the type of bloke he is. He wears his heart on his sleeve, Sticky, and he's been there, done that with the Roosters. It's been a while since Canberra have been in the finals. The great Wayne Bennett days and Tim Sheen days, way back then, and he's been able to do it again with a really young side. And you've got to wonder where this Canberra side goes to from here. I still think they can kick on from this year, but. At the beginning of the year, everyone picked them for the wooden spoon to come out and win it. They got a week up their sleeve. He'll rest a few players this week, no doubt.
And this is the thing. After the game, because I watched all the post-match just to see what the reaction from him would be, and he's just so real about it. Great, we'll celebrate this, but we got bigger fish to fry now, because they're actually believing that they can actually take whoever it is. At home, though, who do they play? Because Melbourne are locked into second, Dogs are locked into third, unless teams win by 100 points and lose by 100 points. That's not going to happen. So Canterbury are going to Melbourne, first round of the playoffs, we know that. Who is going to go to Canberra? Broncos have got the fourth spot at the moment. They play the Storm in the last round. Sharks play the Dogs in the last round. Warriors got Manly away as well, 3 teams on 34 points. On paper, probably the easier game you would think would be Manly, but not because it's DCE's last game. Another Travojevic guy's brother's going to hang around. We don't know. And also those other 2 teams, Storm and Dogs, probably going to rest players, Tony. Why wouldn't they, knowing that it's of no consequence the result of that game, of their games?
Yeah, look, the good thing about it is we'll know, whether the Broncos, a really simple equation for the Warriors, Broncos and Cronulla have to lose and the Warriors have to win, they get 4th spot. Okay, and so they're the ones going to Canberra. And no matter what, for me, they're going to have to do it the hard way. They win it, they go to Canberra, they've got to beat the minor premier just to have a week off and get to the major semi, or those 2 teams win, they lose it, they got to beat Penrith at home. So
it looks that way, doesn't it?
It's no easy task for them. You know what I mean? They're going to come up, they got to get ready either way, and no doubt being a player, you're sitting there, it's like, geez, it's either Canberra or it's either Penrith.
Or there is a possibility that one of Brisbane and Cronulla wins, one loses. Warriors win. Warriors get 5th, and they would play Sydney. They'd play the Roosters at home in that opening weekend. Yeah,
look, I've thought whether or not those. Look, you got to think that Melbourne are going to rest some players this week. But you got Jerome Hughes coming back. You make a hell of a difference. So if he plays this weekend and he wants a game before he gets into the finals, they'll still go all right. Melbourne, it's going to be a hell of a game. You got the Broncos. Can they stop leaking points?
That's the thing, because they tried hard to lose that game on the weekend. Against the Cows.
Madge loses his rag a little bit at half time and gets them over the line. Can you do that 2 weeks in a row? Because the thing with the Broncos, they can be anything. Payne Haas, that try scored on the weekend, like no other front row I don't think could do that. Maybe Adam Fanua-Blake at his best could do that. But it's sort of, for me, you've got Canterbury, you've got Cronulla, Brisbane and Melbourne, and Ivan's already leaked 16 players, you know what I mean? So he's rested them up. Do Melbourne and Canterbury do the same thing, going and knowing that they're going to finish in those spots?
I think they do. They have to, don't they? See, the thing with Penrith is they finish 7th. Well, they could finish 8th.
Yeah.
They could finish 8th if they lose their last game and Sydney win their last game. So there is still a lot of equations and a lot to play out this weekend. Simple for the Warriors, just got to go and win that game and see what happens, see what plays. I just don't think that Brisbane, Cronulla and the Warriors are all going to have the same result. I think there's always twists and turns in every competition, and I think if we try and predict and go, okay, this is what's going to happen, the only things we know for concrete, Storm are hosting the Dogs and Canberra host whoever it is they get.
Yes, and the rest is up in the air. You're still talking about the Dolphins being able to sneak in an 8th spot if South Sydney can beat the Sydney City.
Yeah. So that's a possibility too.
Like you said, there's plenty of
Souths have got great motivation here, Tony. Let's not I mean, this is a team, they hate the Roosters, and out of the dreadful season they've had, they would take a lot from going, we've just cocked up your finals.
Yeah. And look, 2002 was pretty much the same, where we played, I think it was West Tigers, we were sitting 4th, and results, no matter which way they went, if they all went our way, we'd actually end up with a minor premiership, and we ended up with a minor premiership. You know what I mean? So
was that because Canterbury at that stage got relegated out of the...
And you've got you've got a hell of a lot of that going on this weekend. It's a great weekend to be sitting up watching football. Everyone's team's in with a shout, even if you're a Dolphins fan. But there's only really one game. I'm pretty sure Webby will be saying, look, just forget about whatever's going to happen. We just got to go and beat Manly.
I also think it's really important for the Warriors here to go into this finals weekend on good form, a couple of wins and then again a messy lot. Look, that loss to the Eels to me was like the loss to the Dolphins at home. It was like a loss to the Titans at home. We talked about this about 6 weeks ago. You win those home games you're expected to win. You're home and host, and they've lost 3 of those games. So then a finals game at home. So that's what I'm not as confident as I would probably like to be sitting here thinking because of those losses at home.
Yeah, and no doubt Ivan would have worked out the Hurlers scenarios, and probably the game that he would hate the most would be to come to New Zealand.
I think so. Yeah,
and
no one wants to come here for a playoff game.
Well,
mate.
It's going to be sold. It's going to be sold out, and even getting Penrith here at home in a finals game is going to be bloody awesome. You got the premiers for the last 4 years coming in to try.
What a scalp that would be, right?
100%, and even Canberra, you got the minor premiers if you finish in 4th. So, I totally agree with you. You don't want to go. This is the mentality of the coaches, because I think the best coach will win the premiership this year. That's my take on it.
Okay.
So the best coach will win the premiership.
Well, who is that?
Well,
it's got to be Ivan Cleary, doesn't it?
Ivan Cleary's
Bellamy, Ricky Stuart.
Exactly. So Ivan Cleary's played a card already. He's rested 16 players. Basically played his New South Wales team last week, and he's freshened up his team because he knows he needs a run of it. He's basically gone, well, we're going to finish down the bottom. Let's have a run of it. We need.
He's saying they're going to have to win 5 out.
Yeah, but Bellamy at 10-0 against Sydney City would have been thinking the same thing. Well, that's great. Next week I'll be able to rest a handful of players. We're going to finish, fighting out for the minor premiership. I think we get it, And then he gets tonked by 40, and all of a sudden he's saying, no one's getting a break. We don't want to go in the finals on the back of 2 losses. That's what Bellamy. So that means does Bellyache rest his players this week? And then you got Serraldo, who comes in for the first time, sitting in the top 4, and his players have been battling.
They've been so inconsistent, haven't they, in this back half of the season?
I think they've been really average since Galvin's come into the side. I think with Mahoney and Sexton being taken out when they're on the top, they looked a hell of a lot better when they were in the team. So he's like, well, what do I do? Like, do I rest players? He's got other things on his mind. Some really good people are saying you've got to play Mahoney at hooker. They're a much better team. They're more direct when Mahoney's at hooker. So he's got to coach, and he's got to get the noise out of his head. Like, what do I do?
Right.
And then you've got all the others on the bottom going, we're a chance. Because I did tell you this year, I think we've got a new premier come in, and I think it's up to the best coach.
This idea of resting players and going in with, and it's the same as winning that first round of the finals if you're in the top 4 and then having a week off. This is an age-old debate when it comes to all of these competitions. It's the same as the NFL. There are teams that have won from the wild card position, gone to the Super Bowl, played all 4 finals games in a row, won it on the road, and have galvanised themselves because their team gets tight. They start winning and gain more confidence. There's that argument versus our guys know what the hell they're doing. I mean, if I'm Penrith, I'm going, we know what we're doing. But 5 games in a row, can you win 5 in a row if you're Penrith?
Well, if they win this weekend and then go and they've got to take the long road to get to the final. The only team I think that can do it outside the 4. I don't think if we finish 6, I think it's too hard for us. We don't. I think Mitch Barnett there. I think he's a big
I'd like
loss.
to see us with a full squad.
Does Wade Egan finish a game? I'm a little bit worried about Wade Egan. He's been knocked out a few times now, so it's sort of, you're starting to think, man, it's a game. And yes, it's finals, but it now starts to play on the coach. Again, this is the coaching. Like, who do I carry? Do I carry Mitch Healy? Tamari Martin, I've got a really small bench. When you need, you're coming up some giants out of Canberra, out of Penrith. That know how to. They won't carry 2 halves on a bench. So you've got a shitload of coaching to be done there. I just think when you're looking at the competition, it's sort of, it's going to go to the next level. Like
always does.
This weekend. People go, well, we're getting ready for the finals. Well, actually, you can't. Like, this weekend, coaches have to make some real serious decisions.
You think finals start this weekend?
Well, because of where they're going to end up.
You're right.
Where they're going to end up. You've got players coming. Like, Melbourne's a big one for me. Like, you got Hughes coming back. Like, not only does he need to play a game before he gets in the finals, but what a risk of playing him before he gets in the finals.
Well,
so
it's a risk playing anyone.
dislocates his shoulder again. He's out, and they go back and they've lost by 40 to Sydney City. Sydney City rubbing their hands, going, "Well, hope to get them again." You know what I mean? Every other team, because Melbourne are the favourites, going, "Well, no Jerome Hughes."
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then you've got Ricky at the top. I reckon the giant slayers this year, Ricky, is just under the radar.
How can they be under the radar? They're the minor prems.
Absolutely under the radar all year. Everyone's been writing them off. Never going to get the minor premiership. Never going to win the competition. And just look at the wins that they've got this year. Games that they should have won.
The only game I can point at is that one against Canterbury earlier in the season when they were up 20-0 at half time and got absolutely rolled in the second half, right? And that was probably Canterbury's best performance of the season to do that down in Canberra. And that was the one that sparked all the doubt as to is this team legit. Since that time, I think they may have lost one game. Maybe two, but perhaps
I think
one.
the game that said they're the legit contenders was 2 weeks ago when they beat Penrith in their extra time.
There's a lot of luck involved in that one, mate.
8 wins in a row, Penrith on a roll, best side out there, Clear.
Yeah, but how often is that going to happen where he goes for a kick and then he misses it? Well, they run 90 metres.
They run 90 metres, and Penrith missed that tackle 90 metres out. Like, never been done before. So, I'm actually looking forward to it. I think, you can't doubt the effort that the Warrior boys have been putting in. I think, the last few weeks have been putting in huge amounts of effort. I still think that the reliance on Dimitri and Leka, you're going to see a different finals.
But these are young boys, mate. I mean, they're just playing for love at the moment, aren't they? So
and of course, when you get into the finals, the main focus on the Warriors is going to be stop those two definitely. If Dimitri comes off the bench and Leka's out there on their edge, just make the way they just caught the ball and ran through the line. Like, who would have just thought that? Just give me the. He's that kid.
Yeah, he is. Well, that's what I mean. He's just playing with so much confidence. I want to ask two things before we're out, both about the Warriors. First being the halves combination. And I do worry about Chanel because I was watching again, and I just think there's just too much sideways movement going on there. He there's one especially where he really cramped up his winger, and I'm just wondering whether, he puts in some great hits. He's a very brave guy. All of that. I just want to kind of turn him around that way and get him to go forward just a little bit more, or running off Tanner and taking that ball forward. He did that a couple of times, and I think that was the flick pass. Brilliant try. I think it was Leka scored that try. So I want to see more of that from him. And that halves combination, are you looking at Tanner and him, or are you thinking that they may switch and put TMM in?
No, look, I think they'll carry Tamori on the bench still. I think he's a dead set utility. They lose a centre, they lose a fullback, they lose a half. He can go into any one of those spots. They lose a hooker. He runs around in a 13 jersey if he needs to. So I think they carry Tamori on the bench. The big one for me is whether or not they carry Sam Healey. You know what I mean? So you carry Sam Healey if you think that Egan's a bit of an issue.
Well, you would put Tanner Boyd in there, wouldn't you?
Well, you could. Well, you put Tamori back in,
put him in
put
back
Tamori
in.
back in to hooker. So I think you've got to carry a bigger bench. And I think the reason why, when you say, are you worried about the halves? I'm not worried about the halves. I'm worried about the middle of the park, because I think other teams, especially the way that they battled on the weekend with Parramatta, the game is won in the middle of the park. And you're losing real strong middle players. And Dimitri has to come in and play in that 10 jersey, then you just haven't got that consistent roll through the middle of the park, which is when you're starting to talk, well, I need to go a little bit lateral, and which means that their speed of their line isn't as aggressive as it should be, because they're winning the ruck. So they're getting back and looking at what's coming at them and making those defensive decisions, the opposition, quite easily. So I think a lot of the focus is going to be on the middle of the park. The halves, much of a muchness for me, Marty. But we're going to go we'll get further in the finals if our middle go really well.
Looking at the season, 6th spot at the moment on the ladder, have been in the top 4 for most of the season. Right at the very beginning when we sat here, both of us said, and you can rewind the tape and find this, that I thought it would be a great season if we made the 8. I thought that because that's 2 years out of 3 now making the 8. And I want my team to be in that finals 4 years out of 5, because that's when you are legit, when you actually every year are a contender. To me, it's been a fabulous season so far. I aren't putting a full stop at the end of it, because from here, once you give yourself a chance, you give yourself a chance, right? Do they have a game in them? And I don't think the Warriors are capable of winning out from here. And you can shout me to death about that, but I don't think they're capable of winning the premiership, because I think there are better teams. I'm just being honest about that. But do they have a performance in them like they have produced in final series before, when you can go to Melbourne and win, when you can knock teams off and win a finals game?
Well, they're going to have to win 3. They're going to have at least 3 in them. You know what I mean? So they finish 4th, they win the first one, they get a week off, they win the second one in the final, then they win the final. You know what I mean? So
do you think they can win the final?
I don't think they've got 3 games in them. I don't think at that next level they've got 3 good
See, I think
games
they've got
in them.
1 at least. I reckon they can go up a level 1. But yeah, you're right. I think. Well, I don't know. I don't know if you're right,
I'd
but I
love
think
to be
you're right.
proven wrong.
Same.
If they can get the first one, whether it be Penrith or Canberra, you know, if they can get the first one, I'd be sitting here
Or
going,
Roosters. Could be Roosters.
I'd be going, I can't wait. I can't wait for the next one. You know what I mean? So, because that's going to give them so much confidence beating either one of those teams. Penrith, everyone will be sitting here, especially the Western Sydney crowd, that be going, well, we're in the finals, we're a definite chance because we've been there so many times, we know how to do it. And then you're sitting at the top of Sticky going, imagine if he lost the first one.
I think they are vulnerable. I think they have to be vulnerable.
Yes, and then and you know, and then the Warriors, I think, are a confident side. You know, so they get like you say, Marty, you got to win this week against Manly and get some confidence going into the finals.
Absolutely right.
Exactly what Bellamy's saying.
Yeah.
Again, we were talking about it's coming down to the coaching. It's going to come down a hell of a massive coaching effort.
Call it then. How does the table finish then? Raiders are on 1. Storm, Dogs. Who gets 4th?
Ooh.
Not what you want, what you think.
I think Brisbane get 4th.
You think that they beat the Storm and go 4th?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Brisbane get 4th.
Did Cronulla beat the Dogs?
Dependent on whether or not Serralda rests any players. You know, so I think Serralda will be looking at maybe playing Marnie back in at that hooker spot and resting a couple of players. Cronulla, I think Cronulla get him.
That means the Warriors finish 6th.
And I think you're going to Manly. The best thing about Manly being on the Warriors side is that it's going to be full of Kiwis over there in the Northern Beaches, and they'll pack out Manly, they'll pack out Brookie, and it'll be like another home game. But Daly Cherry Evans' final curtain at Brookie, it's going to be a hell of a game.
DSPN.